Today we're going to discuss understanding hazards and disaster, DRRM framework, policies and cycle, and some readiness tips. I'll be your lecturer, Mr. Jose Abraham C. Ongkiko, Project Manager from the UP Resilience Institute. Good day once again. Today we will be discussing the first installment of this four-part series on disaster risk reduction and management. We will tackle the important concepts about hazard and disaster, as well discuss the Philippine hazard profile. The outline of the four-part series is here. We have understanding the concepts and the Philippine risk profile, classification of hazards, DRRM framework, policies and cycle, and some preparedness actions. I'd like you to ponder on these four questions. Is earthquake a disaster? Is flash flood a disaster? Is typhoon a disaster? Is war a disaster? Well, the answer to those four questions are a big no. The presence of hazard does not always lead to a disaster. So what is a disaster? What I initially mentioned is they are all hazards. So a hazard is a dangerous phenomenon or substance of a human activity or condition. Sometimes hazard is affected by a risk or a condition in the community. So we have to discuss first the vulnerability of the community. It is the characteristics and circumstances that make a community. It could be the systems, the assets, the susceptibility that may affect damaging effects. Next, we have capacity. Capacity is the combination of all the strength, the attributes, the resources available that can reduce the level of risk or effect of a disaster. Next, we have exposure. We are exposed to a certain extent to any disaster or hazard. We have people, properties, the elements present in the hazard zones that are thereby subject to potential losses, including livelihood, our relationship with the family. And all of this affects the disaster risk. This is already the losses in the lives, in the health, status, and livelihood, asset, and services. Let's look at it in a disaster mathematical equation. We have the hazard, we have vulnerability, and we have exposure. And the capacity. All of these four will determine the disaster risk. So what is a disaster? Let's make a review given this picture. We see a mountain and a boulder. What is that? And then there is two people. You have one, a drummer boy or a manong, and Superman. What are those? We see that the drummer boy or man says, "Dili ko kadangan." In Bisaya, that means, I cannot walk or I have a broken leg. And we have Superman who says that he's a superhero. So the boulder represents a hazard. Two people are exposed, and the vulnerability of one person is he has a broken leg, and Superman's capacity is he is alert and able to fly. Question: what happens if the boulder tumbles down? The broken-legged person was affected by the hazard, and Superman was able to fly. So is there a disaster? Yes or no? There is. because it affected the population, and half of the population was affected by physical injury. The other one was safe. So what if there is now no Superman, but only two ordinary men having vulnerabilities and no capacities? What if Superman carried with him his friend? Would there be still a disaster? Can a man's capacity negate another's vulnerability? We can answer now the question, can a disaster be prevented? Can a hazard be prevented? Let's now look at the Philippine hazard profile. The Philippines is part, or in the top 10 over the last 3 years of the World Risk Index report. This is a publication which is done yearly by the World Risk Report of the United Nations University. In 2013, we were third. In 2014, we were second. This was due to the effects of Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda, as we all know locally. In 2018, we were third, and in 2009, we were 13th. Number 9. The ranking has been adjusted to focus on risk in urban areas. The highest level a national risk worldwide is Costa Rica. Number 1 on urban risk, Philippines is Guatemala. Philippines is number 2, Guatemala is number 9, number 11 is Bangladesh, and number 13 is El Salvador, and number 14 is Papua New Guinea. In terms of typhoon belt, where the Philippines is found, on the average, over 100 typhoons, tropical cyclones, have formed around the world annually. In the western North Pacific Ocean, which includes south of China and the Philippines, holds the highest formation of typhoons. You could see that the Philippines is already almost covered. No? Also, way down, it covers Australia and the South Pacific island countries. In terms of location, the Philippines is found in the Ring of Fire, meaning the Ring of Fire is highly seismic in activities, lying around the Pacific area Ring of Fire. This includes New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, Japan, Alaska, North America, Middle America, and South America, which includes Peru and Chile. There are more than 400 volcanoes, and 23 to 28 of which are considered. In the Philippines right now, we have 3 volcanoes that are on alert level 1. And this includes the Al volcano, Mayon volcano, and Canlaon volcano. Anyway, if you look at the weather and climate-related disasters in the last 20 years, 90% of the major disasters that have happened are natural in nature. These are floods, storms, heat waves, and other weather and climate-related events, of which about 605,000 people died, and about 4.1 billion affected. We are now at almost 10 billion in population. This ends Module 1.